At Eagle Discovery, we uncover true stories where nature calls for help and humanity answers beneath the waves. A dive that changed everything. Mark Anderson wasn't just a diver. He was a man who had spent most of his adult life listening to the heartbeat of the ocean. With more than 10 years of experience beneath the waves, he had become a silent observer of the underwater world, a realm most people only glimpse through screens or textbooks. Reefs, caves, forgotten wrecks, remote seabeds. He had explored them all, often alone, always in awe. On that particular morning, Howe Sound greeted him like an old friend. The air was crisp, the skies painted in endless blue, and the water mirrored the calm above. It was a picture-perfect day for a dive, the kind divers live for, the kind where the ocean feels welcoming, almost serene. As Mark slipped beneath the surface, the cold of the 54-degree water wrapped around him like a second skin. But it didn't bother him. Cold was part of the ritual. As his body adjusted, his mind tuned into that familiar underwater stillness, a silence only broken by the gentle hiss of air through his regulator and the occasional crackle of distant marine life. He moved slowly along the seafloor, passing bright gardens of sea anemones waving gently in the current. Schools of silverfish flickered through beams of light like living reflections. Kelp forests danced rhythmically overhead, casting shifting shadows below. Everything was just as it should be, predictable, peaceful, and utterly beautiful. But the ocean has its own stories to tell, and some of them are written in silence. Roughly 20 minutes into the dive, while filming a colorful cluster of starfish clinging to a rock shelf, Mark felt it. Not something he saw, but something he sensed. A shift in pressure, a change in current, a ripple of energy that didn't belong. He turned slowly, instinct kicking in. That's when he saw it. A vast, dark shape gliding through the water with measured, deliberate grace. At first, he thought it might be a passing sea lion, or perhaps a large ray, but as it drew closer, its size became impossible to ignore. It was a juvenile humpback whale. Mark froze, not out of fear, but reverence. The whale wasn't darting or dancing the way young ones sometimes do. It wasn't startled by his presence, nor was it displaying playful behavior. Instead, it swam slowly, directly toward him, its massive eye locking with his as if it had something to say. It wasn't afraid, it wasn't curious, it was deliberate. There was a strange intelligence in the way it moved, something unsettling and beautiful all at once. Mark had encountered large marine animals before, sharks, dolphins, even adult whales from a distance. But this felt different. The eye contact wasn't fleeting. The whale hovered, held its position, and watched. And in that gaze, Mark saw something he couldn't explain. Not instinct, not survival, but awareness. Something was about to change, and deep in his gut, Mark knew this dive wasn't going to end the way it began. An unspoken plea. The ocean speaks in its own language, a rhythm of movement and sound that's older than time. Mark had spent years learning to interpret that rhythm. The gentle hum of distant currents, the flicker of warning from darting fish, the hush before something massive passes nearby. But none of that could explain what was happening now. The young humpback whale, barely 12 feet long, hovered just a few yards from him. Completely still, completely present. It made no sudden movements, showed no fear. Instead, it watched him. With eyes that felt too knowing for a creature of the deep, there was no panic in its posture, no signs of distress, but also no curiosity. This wasn't the playful twirling of a calf testing boundaries. This was something else entirely. Mark's pulse quickened. Not from fear, but from wonder. A weight pressed on the space between them, something invisible and powerful. A quiet gravity. In all his years beneath the waves, he had never experienced anything like it. Then the whale moved, slowly, purposefully. It swam forward just a few feet, then stopped, turned back, paused, looked at him again, then repeated the motion. Forward, stop, turn. Wait, it was guiding him? At first, Mark resisted. Training and logic surged to the surface. You don't follow large marine animals into unfamiliar waters. That's the rule. It's how people get lost. Or worse. But the way this whale moved, cautiously, almost pleadingly, stirred something in his gut. It wasn't random. It wasn't a coincidence. This whale hadn't just crossed his path. It had sought him out. There was a message in the movement. Not loud or dramatic, but urgent in a way words could never express. It was like being pulled into a current he couldn't see, guided not by force, but by feeling. And in that moment, Mark made a choice. He turned away from the reef, away from the plan, away from caution. And he followed. The camera in his hand was still rolling, but this was no longer a dive for footage, no longer a mission of science or exploration. Something deeper had taken hold, a silent connection, a bridge between two minds, a mission built on trust. And somewhere in the stillness, Mark understood. This wasn't just an encounter, it was a plea. The hidden valley beneath. Little Whale guided him steadily, swimming ahead and then pausing as if to ensure he was keeping pace. They traveled across nearly 500 meters of ocean floor, weaving through underwater ridges until a shallow basin came into view, a place Mark had never explored before. There, nestled in the valley like a shipwreck, was a second whale, a full-grown adult humpback. She lay nearly motionless on the seafloor, her massive body draped in thick barnacles and clusters of parasites. Her skin, once sleek and dark, had faded to a dull gray. Each breath was a labored effort, her blowhole releasing only the faintest bursts of air every few minutes. She was clearly in distress, sick, injured, or possibly dying. Little Whale swam gently around her, nudging her side with its head, pressing its body close as if trying to offer warmth or reassurance. Mark's heart sank. He understood now. Little Whale hadn't simply stumbled across him. It had gone in search of help. Somehow, against all odds, it had approached the only creature in the vast ocean that might be able to make a difference. And it had led him here. This wasn't just biology. This was emotion, connection, consciousness. Mark floated silently, the weight of the moment sinking in like the cold water around him. He knew he had to act, but more than that, he realized he had just become part of a story far greater than himself. A story where the ocean didn't just speak, it reached out. Fighting the odds. Mark knew he couldn't walk away, not now. From a pouch on his diving harness, he retrieved a small but crucial tool, a titanium scraper typically used to remove rust or marine buildup from sunken wreckage. Today it had a different mission, to help save a life. He approached the adult whale cautiously. Even in her weakened state, her sheer size could be dangerous. One wrong move, one sudden tail flick, and he could be in serious trouble. But Mark moved with the calm patience of someone who had been in the ocean long enough to read its silence. He began carefully scraping barnacles from her dorsal ridge. Each stroke was a balancing act. Too soft, and it did nothing. Too hard, and he risked hurting her fragile skin. Slowly, flakes of barnacle and algae drifted away like underwater snow. Nearby, the calf remained, releasing soft whistles and clicking sounds. Tones of concern, maybe encouragement. It never left his side. After half an hour, Mark had only cleared a small patch. His oxygen tank was running low. His hands were trembling, not from fear, but exhaustion. He had done all he could on his own. It was time to call for help. Rescue from above. Breaking the surface, Mark scrambled aboard his support boat and radioed in an urgent marine distress call. The response was faster than he expected. Within the hour, a sleek rescue vessel pulled into the bay, carrying a specialized team, marine veterinarians, seasoned rescue divers, and a leading cetacean biologist. They arrived with advanced equipment, hydraulic scrapers, stabilizing buoys, and underwater monitoring systems. Mark briefed the team, then dove back in to assist. Together they worked in shifts, slowly clearing away the layers of barnacle and parasite buildup. But as they reached the whale's underbelly, the mood shifted. Something wasn't right. Beneath the crusted growth was a large, swollen bulge, unnatural in shape and size. This wasn't just external damage. Something was buried inside her. The silent killer revealed. The rescue team immediately deployed an underwater ultrasound unit. The results were heartbreaking. Lodged deep in the whale's abdomen was a tangled mass of synthetic fishing net, coiled tightly and soaked in anti-fouling chemicals. The material was laced with tributyl tin, TBT, a highly toxic substance once used on ship hulls to prevent barnacle growth. Though banned for years, remnants still drifted in the ocean, and this whale had swallowed it. The net had wrapped around her internal organs, cutting into her tissue. The TBT had poisoned her from the inside, wreaking havoc on her liver and immune system. Her body had become a breeding ground for parasites, and the barnacles that covered her weren't just hitchhikers. They were evidence of a body slowly shutting down. And yet she had endured, not because of luck. A journey toward healing. The decision was made quickly. She needed a full recovery. A floating sling was placed beneath her, supported by inflatable buoys designed for delicate sea transport. With the calf swimming beside her, they began a slow, careful journey to an at-sea rehabilitation facility on Vancouver Island. Veterinarians monitored her around the clock. Intravenous fluids were administered underwater. Her diet was carefully reinstated, starting with a soft, krill-rich mixture to avoid further stress on her organs. Every treatment used had been tried on oil spill survivors. This was no exception. Chemical poisoning, trauma, starvation. For days, she barely moved. There were times when she refused to eat, when her vision blurred, when the team feared she was about to disappear. But all the while, her baby never left. It swam beside her cage, calling softly, nudging her awake, luring her to the surface. And miraculously, she slowly began to respond. Echo's call. Mark couldn't stay away for long. After that life-changing dive, he visited the rehabilitation center often. Over time, he developed a special bond, not just with the mother whale, but especially with her calf. The little one would recognize him instantly, splashing excitedly at the surface, mimicking the motions of his hands through the water. There was something undeniably intelligent in her behavior, something warm and familiar. He gave her a name, Echo, because her silent cry had traveled across the vastness of the sea. And somehow, it had been answered. As weeks turned to months, the mother's strength slowly returned. Her breathing deepened, her movements grew fluid, and the fog in her eyes began to lift. Blood tests confirmed the unthinkable. The toxins were gone. Her body had fought back, and won. But healing isn't just physical, it was the presence of her calf, and the care of those who refused to give up. That brought her back. Back to the wild. The day of release arrived on a crisp, wind-kissed October morning. Rescue teams gathered silently along the edge of the open water enclosure. The gates were opened. For a brief moment, everything was still. The mother and calf hovered, hesitant, almost as if they understood the weight of the moment. And then together, they swam forward, into the open sea, free. Suddenly, Echo leapt into the air, not once, but 3 times, twisting her body in perfect arcs before crashing down in jubilant splashes. It was celebration, pure joy in motion. Mark was there, camera in hand, capturing the exact moment her body hung mid-air above the waves. That single photograph, Echo soaring against the blue horizon, would go on to be displayed in classrooms, conservation exhibits, and marine sanctuaries around the world. It became more than a picture. It became a symbol that empathy matters, that action matters, that hope is real. The ocean remembers. Several months later, drawn back by memory and meaning, Mark returned to Howe Sound, the place where it all began. He cut the engine and let the boat drift, allowing the silence of the sea to surround him once again. Then, without warning, 2 shadows surfaced nearby. The same pair. The mother, now strong and graceful. Echo, noticeably larger, her movements confident and bold. They circled the boat for a moment as if remembering. And then something remarkable happened. Echo glided closer, brushing her fin gently along the hull of Mark's boat. A whisper of a gesture, a goodbye, a thank you, a shared moment between species, etched into the water and into memory. A diver's new mission. That encounter didn't just change one whale's life. It changed Mark's. He stepped away from commercial diving altogether and committed himself fully to marine rescue. Today, he works alongside global conservation teams, rescuing stranded whales, rehabilitating dolphins, and speaking to future generations about the responsibility we all share. He became a voice for the ocean, and wherever he goes, Echo's photo follows. It hangs in marine hospitals, on the walls of universities, and in the hearts of those who believe that one act of compassion can ripple across the world. Because the ocean is not silent. It speaks to those who are willing to listen. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another incredible wildlife moment. Got your own encounter with nature to share? Drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Let me know if you want this narrated, subtitled, or adapted into a full YouTube script format with on-screen directions and visuals.